So Nintendo recently revealed the rest of the tracks for Wave 3 of the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass, which means we now know what half of the total tracks are in this DLC. And with each wave seemingly getting better and better, I thought it would be a great idea to come up with 15 tracks we absolutely need to see in the last 3 waves of the Booster Course Pass. There will be 5 courses in each of 3 categories that I've chosen: music, graphics, and track design. These would be the main reasons for why I think these courses should be remastered. But if a course does excel only in one area and it falls short in the other 2, it's very unlikely I have it on this list. And of course, finally, all of these listings are not fact. They're not set in stone as the definitive list. These are all just my opinions, and if you guys have a different opinion on what you want in the Booster Course Pass, make sure to let me know down in the comments below. I would love to see which courses you guys want to play in the Booster Course Pass going forward, and I try to respond to every comment as well. Now, with all that out of the way, let's roll the intro and get into my top 15 tracks that I want to see in the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass. And what better way to kick off the music section of the video than with the course with probably the jazziest song in all of Mario Kart Wii, Toad's Factory. This course could honestly also be in the track design portion of this video, or quite frankly the graphics portion as well. I think this is probably one of the best courses in all of Mario Kart history. But the reason I decided to put this in the music section of this video is once again because the music for this course is so jazzy, and that would fit so well in the style of Mario Kart 8, which, if you didn't know, is of course jazz. This course would sound absolutely amazing when being played by live instruments, especially the trumpet section, which sounds already absolutely amazing back in Mario Kart Wii with the synthesized trumpets. The same can be said for the piano sections, which would sound so clean when played on a live piano. The song itself could also be rearranged some as well to maybe fit in a sax solo or other instrumentation. There is so much that the composers and players of the Mario Kart band could do with this song, and I am so excited to see if this comes in the Booster Course Pass. But going from probably the jazziest song in Mario Kart Wii to most likely the jazziest song in Mario Kart Double Dash, we now have GCN Mushroom Bridge. Pretty much everything I said about Toad's Factory applies here as well. The piano, the brass, it would all sound so good when played with live instruments, especially if they added in saxophone, like in this remix by Josh Marsh, which I think perfectly illustrates how this would sound in Mario Kart 8. Only, of course, this is synthesized in Mario Kart 8 would be with live instruments, which I would love to hear. But you might know that Mushroom Bridge and Mushroom City did share the same music back in Mario Kart Double Dash, so you might be wondering why I chose Mushroom Bridge over Mushroom City to put in this track slot. That mainly comes down to the gameplay itself rather than having anything to do with the music, since they do share the exact same song. When you're playing Mushroom City, it'll oftentimes feel very congested with all the cars coming at you and the overall narrowness of the road, which I know is kind of the intent with the feeling of you're in a big city, but overall it does make it kind of unfun at times. And there aren't really any shortcuts. While there are a few split paths in the course, they take pretty much the exact same amount of time to go through, and there isn't really any challenging shortcut that will reward you for taking a risk. Mushroom Bridge, on the other hand, has 2 major shortcuts. One is a mushroom cut during the middle of the course that allows you to skip a corner, and the other one is right before the finish line, which is only useful when you're going into a new lap rather than finishing the course, but what it does is it puts you through a pipe and gives you an item, and it shoots you out to a slightly further section of the course. It doesn't save a lot of time, but it does give you an item, and it's really fun to go through. The course itself is also a lot less narrow, making it feel a lot less congested, and while there are still cars on the track, there seems to be just the right amount in this course, adding enough of a challenge that makes it fun to avoid them, but not so much that you're getting hit by them at pretty much every turn. But other than that, I don't really have a whole lot to say about Mushroom Bridge or its music. So now let's move on to the third course in the music section of this video, which isn't as jazzy as the last 2, though I do think it would still fit really well in Mario Kart 8 style, and that is GCN Wario Coliseum. While the last 2 courses we looked at have songs that are incredibly jazzy, Mario Kart 8 soundtrack isn't only jazz. In fact, it more closely resembles a jazz rock fusion, and I think Wario Coliseum's music would fit perfectly in this style. featuring more electric guitar than the previous 2 tracks, as well as some brass sections and possibly some saxophone intertwined with the electric guitar, similar to how it's done in courses such as Big Blue. This is once again another piece of music that is shared by 2 tracks in Mario Kart Double Dash, which are Wario Coliseum, of course, as well as Waluigi Stadium. And I decided to choose Wario Coliseum over Waluigi Stadium, once again from a gameplay perspective, but also for the music itself. While they do share the exact same music, I feel like it does fit Wario Coliseum a lot better in all the chaos of that track. Wario Coliseum has so many twists and turns, and you're constantly going to be on your toes trying to make sure you don't fall off. It almost feels like a rainbow road that takes place inside a Coliseum. Waluigi Stadium is also fun, especially the version of Mario Kart Wii with all the half pipes, but in comparison it comes nowhere close. It's really just a giant patch of dirt with a lot of places to trick off of when it comes down to it. But if for some reason you do want a course like that, then there's already Excite Bike Arena in the base game, which is, again, just pretty much a patch of dirt with a lot of places to trick off of. It's fun tricking off of those things, but at the end of the day, it's a patch of dirt with a bunch of places to trick off of. Not exactly as exciting and chaotic as you want a Mario Kart track to be. Wario Coliseum, once again, on the other hand, I think is absolutely incredible gameplay-wise. In fact, I almost put it in the track design portion of this video. But at the end of the day, I think the music takes the cake, as it is absolutely incredible, and I would honestly just really love to see it redone in Mario Kart 8 style. But going back to something a little bit more jazzy, and going back to Mario Kart Wii, we now have Wii Moonview Highway. This course's song actually has 2 main parts that go one after another and then loop. The first one, which is more commonly reflected in remixes, like the one you're hearing in the background right now, is a lot more electronic feeling and more chaotic. It really encompasses the feel of the course that you're on this narrow highway and you have to weave through all the cars. However, the gameplay aspect of this is executed a lot better than Mushroom City, but we'll get to that in a little bit. The second part of the song is a lot smoother and feels so much more jazzy. It features something that sounds like a synthesized soprano saxophone, as well as some xylophone and piano parts, which are of course synthesized in this. However, it would sound incredibly good with the live instrumentation of the Mario Kart band. Since the remix that I'm playing right now, though it's incredibly good, doesn't encompass the second part of the song, I'm going to play a little bit of the original for you so you get what I'm talking about. I think the remix I have playing in the background by Josh Marsh, once again, is the perfect way of having the first part of the song being transitioned into Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's style, having a lot more of a rock type of feel with electronic notes to it. Once again, this really encompasses the feel of the course. However, I really hope that if this course does get added to the Booster Course Pass, like I'm hoping it does, it also has this second part, which would sound amazing being recorded with live instruments, and it just sounds so smooth. This course could also definitely be put in the graphics section of this video, as the lighting would look so good with Mario Kart 8's lighting engine at this nighttime course. I would love to see this in Mario Kart 8's graphical engine. And also, once again, the gameplay is spot on, and it works with this concept a lot better than GCN Mushroom City. While Moonview Highway does still have cars and some narrow sections like Mushroom City, it feels so much less congested because instead of there just being buildings all around you, there's now just a drop into where you can see a forest beneath you because you're on a cliffside highway. This does make it somewhat more difficult to navigate because you can fall off. However, there are also high ground areas you can get onto to avoid falling off, as well as a wider section under an overhang that's midway through the track that offers you some relief from these narrow sections. Overall, this track is extremely well executed, and I would love to see it in the Booster Course Pass. However, I've spent a lot of time on these past few courses, and we have a total of 15 to get through, so let's move on to the probably longest course in the music section of this video, which is GBA Rainbow Road. Now, I say this is probably going to be the longest course in the music section of the video because I have actually planned exactly how I would want this course to sound in Mario Kart 8 style. However, if you don't want to hear me talk about this one song for a bit, then you can click on the timestamp that I've added for the next section of the video, which is the courses that I want to be added in for their graphical quality in Mario Kart 8's engine. This is going to be the last course in the music section of the video, so you won't be missing anything other than what you want to skip. But if you are still here at this point in the video and you want to hear me talk about how I would change this course's music, Then, let's get into it. The intro to the course would be a piano section playing the first few notes, and the drums would kick in just as the main melody is about to start. The first part of the main melody will be played by a combination of brass and strings. The strings would be playing the whole way through, while the brass would play the more hard-hitting notes. Then when it finally gets to this part, which I'm going to just play instead of describing because I don't really know how to describe it, this will be played by an alto saxophone, and during the first run of this course, it'll play exactly like the original. However, on the second run of this course, after it's looped once, then it will play into pretty much a full sax solo that will cover the entire next section of the course, as the other instruments are playing as well. This will be similar to how Sydney's Sprint on its first verse has a sax solo that's a little bit more mild, while in the second verse it kind of just goes completely crazy. And then this final portion before the loop will be played by a combination of piano and strings, and it will pretty much follow the exact same pattern of notes as the Pan Man Music remix of it, and the electric guitar will kick in at pretty much the same point. And that Super Mario Kart Rainbow Road transition back into the start of the loop I think is ingenious, and I really hope Nintendo adds that if they bring in GBA Rainbow Road into the Booster Course Pass. I don't know why I've put so much thought into this song alone, it just kind of popped into my head the way I would want it to sound, and I haven't been able to get it out of my head since. As of right now, there's not a single GBA Rainbow Road remix out there that I could find that follows this sort of formula, which is why I'm really hoping that either Nintendo brings this over to the Booster Course Pass, because I feel like it would sound very similar to this, or someone remixes this and it sounds similar. Either way, I would absolutely love to hear this idea come to life, and that's one of the reasons I really want this course in the Booster Course Pass. Plus, with the way that Mario Kart 8 changes GBA tracks, even in the Booster Course Pass, I would love to see what Nintendo does with this course, because even in its basic flat state, it's one of my favorite Rainbow Roads in the series. But now let's pick up the pace here and move into the graphics section of this video. Starting off with 3DS Wario Shipyard. Even with the low resolution of the 3DS and the low poly count and texture quality, this course somehow managed to look graphically stunning in Mario Kart 7. And if it was ported over to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, even if it's in the Booster Course Pass, I think it would look even better, especially given that each wave of the Booster Course Pass seems to be looking graphically better than the last. Two of the best aspects of Mario Kart 8's graphics are its lighting and the way water looks in the game. And this course literally has you going through a sunken pirate ship at sea during a dark and stormy night. Literally perfect for Mario Kart 8's graphical style. Not to mention the track design is super engaging in this course as well, and it's always so much fun to play. This course I think is honestly one of the more likely ones to actually get into the Booster Course Pass as well, given that it's already in Mario Kart Tour, and it actually doesn't look half bad for that game. Just make the textures a little bit more detailed and throw it into Mario Kart 8's lighting engine to do the rest of the work, and you have got yourself a graphically gorgeous course that is also extremely fun to play. I really hope Nintendo decides to do this and bring this over into the Booster Course Pass. And the next course we're going to talk about is once again from Mario Kart 7 as well, which is 3DS Shy Guy Bazaar. This course is also set at night, just like 3DS Wario Shipyard. However, instead of a dark and stormy night, it's the nighttime upon an Arabian Nights inspired market that's run by Shy Guys. Nintendo really went all out with the creativity on this course. This course also looked incredibly good in Mario Kart 7, with the warm lighting in contrast with the dark sky, and I think it would look even better in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Not to mention the theming and the actual design of the course itself are so good. I really considered putting this one into the track design portion of the video as well. There's so many little details that you can find throughout this course, whether they be in the background or within the actual market itself, and it would be so cool to see these brought even more to life with Mario Kart 8's graphical quality. This course, just like Wario Shipyard, is also in Mario Kart Tour as well, meaning that it does have a pretty decent chance of coming to the Booster Course Pass. As is our next course, which actually looks very good in Mario Kart Tour, and is actually one of the better looking courses in that game in my opinion, and that course is DS Airship Fortress. This course was already one of the better looking courses back in Mario Kart DS, which is actually crazy that it looked this good given that it's running on a console with pretty much the same amount of power as the N64. The purple sunset in the background just looks absolutely gorgeous, and the design of the course itself is also really cool. As the name implies, in Airship Fortress you drive through an airship and a fortress. Go figure. But the main focus of the course is the airship itself, which is actually one of the ones from Bowser's Fleet in Super Mario Bros. 3. And if I'm not mistaken, this course was actually the first time these ships were fully realized in 3D. The airship itself is filled with Bowser's minions, namely Rocky Wrenches and Bonsai Bills, as well as some flame burners you'll have to avoid halfway through the course. This is once again another track that I really considered putting in the track design portion of this video. It is just so good. Nintendo has put out so many good courses over the years, it was really hard to categorize these by these three criteria. Like I mentioned before, the purple sunset in the background would look gorgeous in Mario Kart 8 style. And something that the tour variant of the course added is that it's surrounded by lava, which would look fantastic in Mario Kart 8 as well. Since there's already a really good looking lava texture in the game, plus some airship background assets from Cloud Top Cruise, Nintendo wouldn't even have to do a whole lot of effort importing this course over from Tour. Just spruce up the textures a little bit so it doesn't look like a Wave 1 course and it actually looks like a Mario Kart 8 course, let the lighting engine do most of the work, and then just add in the background assets that are already in the game. I would love to see this track fully reimagined in Mario Kart 8 style, given that it was so good back on the DS. And graphically, I think it really deserves the upgrade, even though it did already get remade in Tour. But the next course I almost put in both of the other two categories, being music and track design, because it is so good in all of them. However, I ended up having to put it in the graphics section just because it would be so cool to see this get such an upgrade from its original, which is GBA Lakeside Park. In my opinion, this course is one of the best in all of Mario Kart Super Circuit, not only because of its general layout, but because of its use of the game's jump pads to add verticality to the track. The combination of boost panels and jump pads allows you to jump over previous sections of the track, and then if you fall or don't make the jump, then you have to redo that portion of the track. This adds a great amount of difficulty to the course, while also not making it too hard, because the portions of the track that you jump over aren't that far away from the jump itself, meaning that it shouldn't take you too long to get back to the jump to try again, but it will definitely set you back a few places. Now, I don't think that this falling onto previous portions of the track gimmick would work super well in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's style, given that it has very different pacing and scaling of the courses than Mario Kart Super Circuit. However, I do think you should still be able to jump over the previous portions of the track, and instead, whenever you fall, Lakitu will just pick you up and put you back on the upper portion. You'll still lose time, it just won't set you back as much as it did back in Mario Kart Super Circuit, given that it will likely be a much larger distance in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe due to that game's scaling of tracks. But now let's move on to why this is actually in this section of the video, being the graphics, which are actually really good for Mario Kart Super Circuit, which already is one of the best looking GBA games in my opinion. The volcano spewing molten rock onto the track, as well as the other mountains in the background, would look so good in this game, as well as some of the details on the track itself, such as the trees that in Mario Kart Super Circuit were just barely bigger than your cart. They could now actually be fully sized trees. Plus, given that this track kind of added pseudo-elevation to the flat style of gameplay that Super Circuit offered, it would be so cool to see this track get some actual elevation changes. But before we move on to the next track, I just want to quickly touch on the music of this course, even though it's not in that section of the video, because Mario Kart Super Circuit soundtrack, in my opinion, is probably the most jazzy soundtrack in the Mario Kart series other than that of Mario Kart 8, and I would love to hear Lakeside Park's music in Mario Kart 8 style, similar to the remix you're hearing in the background by Duluth Teg Orb. But then moving on to the final course of the graphics section of this video, it is another course from Mario Kart Super Circuit, and I am even more excited for this one than Lakeside Park because it actually has a very cool graphical gimmick back in Mario Kart Super Circuit. It is GBA Sunset Wilds. Now, this course has already been remade in Mario Kart Tour, however, I really hope Nintendo doesn't bring that version over to the Booster Course Pass because it is as flat as the original. Instead, I hope they remake it in a way that's similar to the custom track made for Mario Kart Wii by the modder Flint, which adds a cave you can go through plus multiple elevation changes while also keeping the central gimmick of the track, which is that the skybox changes to different times of day when you go into different laps, which was something really cool back on the GBA, and I think it could be executed even better in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. The sunset slowly descending into nighttime will look absolutely gorgeous in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's lighting engine. Plus, because Sunset Wilds is a desert stage, it will still probably look pretty darn good in the Booster Course Pass even without that factor, because desert stages typically look pretty good even with simple textures because that's what they commonly use. Take Calamari Desert in Wave 2 for example. That course still looks really good and it uses very simple textures. The Shy Guy totem poles and rock formations in the background would also look super cool, again with elevation changes to the track. I feel like if the track was ported over from Tour and its existing state, it would still be enjoyable, but I think it would be a waste of a track slot in the Booster Course Pass. It needs to actually have some elevation changes and be modernized for it to be in the Booster Course Pass. I mean, we don't want another Mario Circuit 3 on our hands, which though it is still really fun to play because of its off-road shortcuts and tight turns, Nintendo absolutely wasted its potential importing it over from Tour without any major changes at all. I mean, just look at Donut Plains 3 in the base game. Graphics aside, the course is still even more fun to play than Mario Circuit 3, even though it doesn't have very much of a change from its original layout, and that's because it's added in some newer Mario Kart mechanics and modernized the course, such as with the tricking off of the Monty Moles and the underwater section. If Nintendo added the same amount of effort they added into Donut Plains 3 to Mario Circuit 3, it would be so much of a better course, and I hope they learn from their mistakes if they port over Sunset Wilds. But now that we're done with my little rant about Mario Circuit 3, let's move on to the final section of this video, being track design. And I think the perfect way to kick off this section of the video is with one of the most memorable courses and most loved courses in Mario Kart Wii, being Wii DK Summit. If you were to play all the Mario Kart Wii courses in the order they appear in the menu, then DK Summit would actually be the first one for half pipes to appear in, and it introduces the gimmick beautifully. As soon as you get launched to the top of DK Summit, you'll find that there are half pipes on either side of you that you can trick off of to test out the gimmick. Soon after that, there are patches of snow that will slow you down a lot, so you're encouraged to use those half pipes to get over them. There are also a bunch of areas spread throughout the course with a bunch of bumps on them that you can trick off of, which is super satisfying. Soon after this portion of the track, you'll find yourself with only one half pipe on one side of you that if you go off of it wrong, you'll fall into a pit. This is a perfect way to test your skills with the half pipes that you learned in the earlier section of the track. Additionally, you can decide to just completely skip the half pipes and do a shortcut to jump over the gaps. However, it is decently difficult to get both gap jumps at once. And during the final section of the track, you once again have half pipes on either side of you, but there are now also Shy Guys snowboarding on them, which adds the additional challenge of trying not to hit them, as if you do hit them, you spin out. The idea of introducing a gimmick, testing the player with it, and then giving them one final challenge is actually a design philosophy that Nintendo uses in their Mario platforming levels, and it translates beautifully over to Mario Kart. I really hope more tracks in the future use this type of design philosophy. Some other ones in Mario Kart 8 and other Mario Kart Wii courses have used this as well, and in my opinion, they are some of the best courses in the franchise. Because DK Summit is already in Mario Kart Tour, and half pipes have been confirmed to be added to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe with the Booster Course Pass, I think it's a no-brainer for Nintendo to bring this over to the Booster Course Pass, and I hope I'm correct so badly, because this, in my opinion, is once again one of the best courses in the entire Mario Kart franchise. But then our next track slot is actually one of my favorite courses in Mario Kart history, just because of the nostalgia it brings me. Though its track design is absolutely amazing as well, it is 3DS Woohoo Loop. There are actually two courses in Mario Kart 7 that have you driving around Woohoo Island from Wii Sports Resort, being Maka Woohoo and Woohoo Loop. And though many people do tend to prefer Maka Woohoo over Woohoo Loop, I've decided to put Woohoo Loop in this list because I think it overall does a better job at allowing you to experience driving a race through Woohoo Island, as it shows you more of the island itself because you're doing a loop around it, as opposed to Maka Woohoo where you're pretty much just driving up the volcano and then flying on a glider section off of it down to the finish line. And not only is it so cool to be able to race a Mario Kart course along the island that was the setting of one of my favorite childhood games, but the way Nintendo decided to go about this is so cool as well in terms of the design of the course. The path you drive in this course is actually taken directly from Wii Sports Resort, as in that game you can see this path while either playing the cycling courses or by doing the island flyover, and it integrates all these little paths that were originally part of Woohoo Island and seamlessly connects them together where they weren't before. Even some of the small crevices and caves that were in the island that you could just barely get into in the island flyover if you were really good with the controls for that game, those are still represented in this course with some of the caves and shortcuts that you're able to take. And because the course is one lap with 3 checkpoints rather than being 3 of the same lap, you really get to experience the entirety of Woohoo Island and all of its landmarks that were present in Wii Sports Resort. After 3DS Woohoo Town returned in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe as a battle course, I've really been wanting to see 3DS Woohoo Loop return as well, because the way that Woohoo Town was remade was absolutely phenomenal, and I would love to see the same treatment applied to Woohoo Loop. And since this course isn't already in Mario Kart Tour, though that might make it a little bit less likely to appear in the DLC, it's possible that then this could get its own original model in Mario Kart 8 style, not being held back by Tour's art style. And I know this is a little bit far-fetched and probably won't happen, but given that graphically each wave seems to be getting better and better, I wouldn't put it past Nintendo as they're putting more and more effort into each wave. But this next course is actually a double dash track, which we haven't seen any of since the music section of this video. And that course is GCN Daisy Cruiser. While the concept of Daisy Cruiser is pretty simple, you're just driving on a cruise ship, it's the execution of this idea that makes the track design so good. The main gimmick of this course is that the cruise ship is constantly tilting back and forth, causing multiple of the items on the ship itself to move with it. The introduction of this gimmick is actually on the first item set, which though it is stationary at the beginning of the race, as the ship will tilt later on in the race, you'll see that the item boxes will roll left to right and back again. But this gimmick really starts to heat up towards the middle of the course, when you enter the dining hall. Here there are not only just the moving item boxes, but also tables and chairs that are tilting with the boat that threaten to push your cart around and keep you from getting to the exit of this dining hall. And once you do exit, you'll see that there are now two routes you're able to take. The top route is slightly more difficult as it's easy to accidentally drift into the hole that takes you to the bottom route, and it only gives you a single item box rather than a double item box, but it is somewhat faster. While if you do fall into the bottom route, you'll get a double item box rather than a single item box, and you'll get shot back up to a latter portion of the top route. However, it will take slightly more time. I love the applications of risk versus reward in this section of the track. Not only are you rewarded with a faster route by driving well and staying on the top path, but if you decide to risk going onto the bottom path on purpose to get the double item box, you could potentially be rewarded with good item luck that could really give you the edge in that final stretch of the course once it shoots you up back onto the top route. This one split path adds so much more strategy to the course, and I absolutely love it. And then combine that with the gimmick of the course itself tilting back and forth and the items on it doing the same, and you have such a great design for the track. Not to mention, I really like the idea of racing on a cruise ship in Mario Kart. I know it's simple, but I absolutely love it, and it's so much fun to play on. But then our next course is actually one of my favorite Mario Kart tracks of all time, and it did just get added to Mario Kart Tour recently, which has me hoping it will be brought over to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe through the Booster Course Pass, and that course is GCN DK Mountain. Now, a lot of people will probably think I should have given this spot to GCN Dino Jungle instead of DK Mountain. However, believe it or not, I do actually prefer DK Mountain for a variety of reasons that I'm now going to explain. First off is the level of difficulty, and while DK Mountain certainly isn't the easiest course in Mario Kart, it is definitely a lot easier than Dino Jungle, which I honestly think is difficult to a fault. And please don't misunderstand me, I think difficulty is a great thing to have in Mario Kart courses. That's why all the Rainbow Roads are so beloved. However, I think that difficulty needs to be implemented in a way that still makes the course fun for the player. First off is Dino Jungle's titular dinosaur, which is so large that it's almost impossible to avoid with Double Dash's turning system that's kind of slippery, and if you run into it, you spin out rather than just stopping on it like a wall. I feel like it would have been much better to have it only have an actual effect on you if you were stepped on by the dinosaur rather than just if you barely touch it. Following this, there are some narrow bridges that are extremely difficult to stay on thanks to, once again, Double Dash's turning mechanics. And finally, during the last part of the course, there's yet another narrow bridge, but this time you also have the possibility of being knocked off by the dinosaur's head that's peeking over it. And let me make it clear, I do believe this course is absolutely filled to the brim with charm, but it's not utilized in a way, same with its difficulty, that makes the course very fun. And I think a lot of this track's issues could be made into positives if it was ported over to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. However, I do think those positives are outweighed by the positives of DK Mountain returning instead. And before I continue, let me just reiterate one more time, these are just my opinions. They aren't necessarily right or wrong. Again, they're just opinions. DK Mountain has one of my favorite features of pretty much any Mario Kart track, which is that there is almost no off-road whatsoever, and not in a bad way either. Some of you who've been watching the channel for a while might know that I don't really like the track design of Waluigi Pinball that much, mainly because there is not any off-road as well as no other shortcuts. However, DK Mountain uses this feature of no off-road and takes full advantage of it. The fact that there's no off-road doesn't restrict the potential for shortcuts. In fact, quite the opposite. Because while on the mountain, while the outside of the actual track you're meant to go on isn't off-road, it is very bumpy and has very rough terrain, making it extremely difficult to traverse. This once again brings in the factor of risk versus reward. You could try going onto the rocky areas without a mushroom and potentially get the inside lane and overtake a few people, gaining a few places, but there's also the potential potential of losing control of your cart and running into the wall. Not only that, but it's also just so much fun to drive along this rock, because even though it is bumpy, it's so much fun to be able to overcome that and control your cart through this area onto the next portion of the track. And speaking of the next section of the track, there's actually a difficult gap jump in this course, just like the one in DK Summit. Now, this gap jump is actually no longer very difficult at all, given that it was made so much easier in the Mario Kart Wii version of the course, given to a change in the model, as well as that game's physics in general, which are very similar to that of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. But that doesn't take away from the fact that this is such a fun shortcut to pull off, and it does save a lot of time. So I would be so excited to be able to try this out with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's controls. But now we have finally reached the last course of this video, and I don't think there's any better way to round off the track design portion of this video than with Mario Kart Wii's Bowser's Castle. Everything from the music to the giant Mecha Bowser in the middle of the course to the split paths, everything ties together beautifully in this course, and I don't think there is any Bowser's Castle that probably could ever top this. I'll probably be proven wrong by Nintendo in a future Mario Kart game, but for the time being, this one is definitely the best in my opinion. The wavy road that is at the start is so satisfying to constantly trick off of, and then you're taken into multiple sharp turns that take you into the main chamber with the giant Mecha Bowser shooting fireballs at you that you then have to avoid with half pipes. Then after that, the lava spires and thwomps will constantly keep you on your toes all the way up until the ending, which is so cool, where you have the lava spires coming out of the ground, and as they do come out of the ground, you're able to trick off of the lumps they leave there, and it is absolutely such a cool mechanic that I would love to see redone in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Once again, everything in this course is pretty much done to perfection, and I honestly don't think there's much I can say about this that hasn't already been said. All I know is I would just love to see this course remade in any capacity, whether it be only in Mario Kart Tour or preferably in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's Booster Course Pass, or even all the way in Mario Kart 9 or 10. But that's pretty much all I have to say about the 15 tracks I think we absolutely need to see in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's Booster Course Pass and beyond. If you liked the video, then why don't you go down there and press that like button? I mean, if you got this far in the video, odds are you probably did like it. And while you're down there, you might as well subscribe as well if you want to see more videos like this. That way you guys get notified whenever I upload more videos, and it really helps out the channel as well. This video did take a pretty long time to make given how long it is. I didn't intend it to originally be this long, but I really had a lot more to say about these tracks than I thought I did. So thank you all so much for watching all the way up to this point, and I'm Jacob with the Game Block, signing off.